Hi folks, this is the Death Delusion. We're going to be doing a rapid fire explanation for the scientifically plausible theory of life after death. Now, the theory has three premises: that your consciousness is time, space, and substrate independent. In other words, your physical brain, the substrate, or the time, which, your brain moves through time and that's how you're able to think, and your physical position of your brain, its position in space, do not have to be contiguous, in other words, continuous through time, do not have to be contiguous in order for your consciousness to remain contiguous. Contiguous is an important term. It essentially means continuous through time. What it means is that, at least from your point of view, your consciousness continues to exist, that you continue thinking. So here's your brain. Here's your brain on drugs. Just kidding. Here's your brain. Now, the first premise is that your consciousness is space independent. And what does that mean? It's very simple. Your consciousness can move about. Your brain rather can move about, and your consciousness remains contiguous. So it's like your consciousness is a rider on a boat. The boat can fly across the ocean, but the person stays on the boat. It doesn't mean that, let's say your consciousness was some sort of thing on top of your brain, and then if you move the brain, the consciousness stays behind and now you're dead. No, that's not how it works. The two move together. They move as one. So, that seems very reasonable. No one really disagrees with that. But we take it to its edge case to prove the point. Does it matter if... So this black thing is your consciousness. I know, it's very scientific. Does it matter if your brain and your consciousness move around extremely quickly? And move it around really, really fast? Apart from the fact you'd probably get seriously injured, but let's say you had a helmet on, or you're in a spaceship and you can move around really, really fast. Is your consciousness still contiguous? Well, if your brain's still in one piece, yes, right? Okay, good. Now, what happens if your consciousness is... just going to... Okay, yes, alright. What if your consciousness disappears and appears somewhere else? You see what I mean? What if it goes from one place to the next? In an instant. Bang, bang. If your brain's moving at the maximum speed, just instantly appearing somewhere else in the universe, is your consciousness still contiguous? That's a question for you to answer. Okay, if you disagree, then you disagree with this entire theory. But let's say you agree. Here's a hint. From your point of view, your consciousness would remain contiguous because you'd still be thinking. But some people think that, in fact, you die every time and it's a clone made out of the same exact materials and the same exact structure. But that's a different story. It's up to you to decide. But if you think that your consciousness remains contiguous with your brain and moving around at any speed, even instantly across the universe, then you're with us so far. On to the next one. The next premise is that your brain is substrate independent. What is the substrate? Sorry, consciousness. I keep saying brain. Your consciousness is substrate independent. Okay. What is your consciousness? Well, what is your brain, rather? It's a bunch of protein put together. Now, your consciousness lives on your brain. Yes? It's on there. It is. It stays there. It totally stays there the whole time. Okay? Now, what happens over time? Wow, something very interesting happened. What happened? Ha! Here we go. What happens? Your brain changes. Bits of it change. You're like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the atom, the microscopic, tiniest little particles of your brain. They change. Scientifically proven. Your brain changes. From the day you're born to the day you die, at the end of it, every atom is different. 95% of the cells are different, okay? The cells are just made up of the atoms, and the atoms are all different. So it's different. It's a different brain. At the end of it, it's a different brain. You start off one color, you end up, different brain. But what is interesting is no matter how many times it changes, the squiggly lines, your consciousness stays the same. So what does this mean? It means your consciousness is substrate independent. It is not dependent on the substrate. If it was dependent on the substrate, then it too would die. Then it too would disappear when the initial brain was changed. You see? But it's not. It stays. You remain contiguous from birth until now. You're watching this video, you are still you. You're not dead. Okay? So it doesn't matter if your brain changes. But let's take it to the edge case. Your brain changes very, very slowly. But what if it changed fast? Interesting. What if it changed fast? What happens then? What happens then? If it changed quickly, what happens then? Nothing. Your brain could change 10,000 times a second and you wouldn't know the difference. Unless you were looking at it, the MRI machine or something. But your brain could be changing and you wouldn't know because your thoughts remain the same. As long as what's replacing the atoms identically functions the function of the atoms, you're fine. So, it doesn't matter. Your brain is substrate independent. Either slowly or quickly, it doesn't matter. Substrate could change instantly to a totally different substrate. It doesn't have to be protein-based. The floppy grey matter of your brain doesn't have to be that. It could be silicone, it could be digital, it could be some other totally different exotic material, diamond, whatever. As long as your thoughts, as long as your consciousness, the pattern of your brain, the pattern of your mind rather, on your brain remained contiguous, you wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't feel anything. Your brain, your consciousness is substrate independent. You don't need your brain, you just need something to suspend the electrical impulses, the pattern of your neural connections, the pattern of your consciousness. Next up, your consciousness is time independent. This is very interesting. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting deeper. Here's your brain, and you're moving through time, you're thinking, oopsie, what's below there? You're thinking, you're walking around, you're happy, you're having thoughts. And then all of a sudden, bang! We freeze your brain. Okay, when I say freeze, I don't mean like put in a freezer and the cells explode with ice crystals. No, I mean really freeze. Like some amazing technology pauses all the atoms, so they're just totally stuck. Bang! Every single atom is exactly stuck in place. Nothing degrades. Perfectly frozen for 1 second. And then, bang! Unfreeze it. Would you even notice? If you're looking at a clock, you might see 1 second pass, but you wouldn't notice a thing. Okay? You wouldn't notice a thing. From your point of view, you wouldn't feel the pause because you're not thinking during the pause. It'd just be, time would just disappear. Okay? So, what about if you're thinking and bang, we freeze you and then we leave you there for 1 billion years. And then bang, we unfreeze you and you keep on thinking and you wouldn't know anything. You would be like, what? You'd be looking around, where is everyone? You wouldn't know that 1 billion years had passed. Because for you, it would be just like everything changed because all you know is from your point of view, your thinking, your thoughts. From your point of view, your consciousness would have been contiguous. Even though, from the objective point of view, from the physical universe, your consciousness would have just stopped. It would have been paused for 1 billion years and then restarted again. Okay. Question is, were you still alive? Or were you just paused? Or did you die? Pardon me. Did you die? And were you recreated out of exactly the same parts that hadn't moved? It's up to you to decide. But if you agree that your consciousness was contiguous, just not contiguous through time because it's time independent, then you're still with me. So those are the 3 premises. Let's put them together. Here's your brain. Happily moving through space. Okay, there's your brain. It's moving around through space. You're living your life, you're happy. And then bang, we freeze your brain. We still know you're still contiguous. But then we do something very strange. We chop your brain up. We chop your brain up into as many little pieces as we can. In fact, we chop it up into the individual atom. And then we spread those atoms to the 4 corners of the universe. We explode your brain. We pull every single atom to as far away as it can get from every other atom in your brain. It is as dead can be. It is totally and utterly exploded. If a nuclear bomb went off next to your brain, it would be less exploded than what we just did. And then we leave those atoms exploded across the universe for 1 billion years. They're all still frozen, okay? They're not moving. And then we bring them back together. And then we unfreeze your brain. Are you with me? From your point of view, nothing would have changed. You'd look at a clock and go, oh, it's been 1 billion years. What happened? It would just flash, just like before. You wouldn't know that 1 billion years had passed. You wouldn't know that the atoms of your brain had been completely and utterly blown apart. From your point of view, your consciousness would remain contiguous. And if you agreed with the 3 premises, it would actually have been contiguous. Had you died, or had your consciousness just been paused while the substrate was blown about the universe for some strange reason, and then put back together for some strange reason, and then bang, unpaused. There you go, you're continuing. You did not die, you were just paused. You did not die when your brain was exploded worse than an atomic bomb blowing your brain up. Now we get to the kicker, a really interesting part. Let's say your brain is frozen, and all the parts are broken up. And then different parts are put back together. Can't do it very well, but you can imagine it all put back together. Be a better job than this. And you think, what am I saying? I'm saying different parts, different atoms are brought together, and your brain is recreated, and then it's unfrozen. What'd you say? But these are different parts. I was with you up until this point. But if you make it out of different parts, then it can't be the same consciousness. But remember what I showed you before. The substrate could change 1,000,000 times a second. The substrate could change instantly, completely, 1,000,000 times a second. Because your brain is substrate independent, your consciousness would remain contiguous. Your consciousness is not dependent on the substrate. Your brain could be blown apart, the particles spread to every corner of the universe for 1,000,000,000 years, and then it could be recreated out of totally different atoms and unpaused, and your consciousness would remain contiguous. It's irrefutable. No one yet has been able to disprove this apparent fact. Now, what are the chances, you might say? Well, look, I'm sort of with you, but what are the chances that my exact brain would be recreated? Possibly even out of the original atoms, if some super advanced alien could collect them all individually and put them back together. Or even different atoms. What are the chances? Well, not very high. I'll grant that. In fact, vanishingly small. Unless, of course, the universe is infinite and endless and timeless forever. If the universe is infinite in time, then every possible combination of atoms will occur an infinite number of times. If the universe is infinite, which none of us can say with any certainty, the best we could do is just have a likelihood of 50% with an error margin of 0 to 100%. But if the universe is infinite, then your brain will be recreated out of the same atoms and other atoms an infinite number of times. You will come back to life, recreated exactly as you were at the point of your death. And your consciousness will, given the premises, will remain contiguous. Therefore, it is plausible, since it is plausible that the universe could be infinite, it is plausible that there is life after death. Thank you.